begin with our invocation to the unity. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Muhammadan Rasulullah. Alayhi salatullah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Ibrahim Rasulullah. Alayhi salatullah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Musa Rasulullah. Alayhi salatullah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Isa Rasulullah. Alayhi salatullah. And our prayer for peace. Allahumma anta salam, wa minka salam, wa ilayka yaudu salam. Tabarakta Rabbana wa ta'alaita, ya dal jalali wal ikram. And I'm sure you all know this, that from the Sufi perspective, the prophets are all one, that they all taught the same message, and it had to be tweaked a little bit for whatever time they were teaching, whatever people they were teaching, but it's one message. And that's why we begin with the invocation to the unity and invocation to all the prophets. And as Sidi would say, make no separation with any of them. That was pretty well drummed into us by him. So there's that. And then there's the thing that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was not just the prophet for his own people. He was a prophet for all the world and for all the worlds. So he was kind of the wrap-up prophet, pulling it all together and bringing in the culmination of the message. So today we're going to look at the Prophet Hud. And I want to say, honestly, that when I first read the first version of the Stories of the Prophets, which was, I don't know how many years ago, I know I read about Hud then, and I know Hud is mentioned all over in the Quran, but I hadn't reread the chapter in that book, and I hadn't read this book about Hud till I got asked to do this class. So this was a learning for me, and I'm just telling you, it was. And it's interesting because I study tafsir with a beloved in England, and the surah that we're on is Dariyat, the wind-carved dunes, which is one of the surahs that's, the surah itself isn't referenced, but the wind-carved dunes and Hud is referenced. So I just thought that was a beautiful convergence or synchronicity, because Sidi's tafsir, which I'm going to be referring to here, is dovetails beautifully with this chapter. So this is called, Hud is called the Station of Unity. And I have to say that I don't exactly know that yet. Well, he was, I mean, like all the prophets, he was teaching there's only one God and not to worship idols, just like Ibrahim and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So anyway, it's called the Station of Unity. So obviously it's a really exalted station that he occupied. So this is a longish chapter. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. So I'm going to read excerpts of it and highlight them, and then we'll discuss some of it, and then we'll have you writing some things that I think are potent highlights, like in Zawiya, and then we'll be doing some dhikr together at the end. Yeah, thanks, Sarah, for putting it in the chat. That's pages 78 to 89 in the new version of the Stories of the Prophets. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hud, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in the beginning, Sidi says, after the story of the prophet Noah, may peace and blessings be upon him, I begin now to tell the story of the prophet Hud. May peace and blessings be upon who was an Arab. And I just think it's very endearing. I mean, Sidi's an Arab, that's part of his identity, and he specifies that in this chapter, and I just think that's very sweet and endearing. So Hud was from his people, let's say, and he's a very ancient prophet. These are in chronological order, so it's after Noah. He lived with his people of the Ad tribe in their country, which extended from South Transjordan to north of Saudi Arabia. So in Sidi's parlance, Jordan and Syria and the north of Israel and all those areas was Transjordan, because in his time, as he was coming into, well, in his childhood and coming into adulthood, that's what it was called. And so whenever he referred to that area, he, even in modern times, he still called it Transjordan, which is so beautiful because there was a unification there that later changed because of geopolitics. This country is mainly desert, but there are mountains and rivers. The life there today continues as it was long ago, with sheep and camels. During the time of Hud, may peace and blessings be upon him, it was also an important business center because it was along the trade route. If someone wanted to bring something from the north, for example, from Syria, and did not want to go by the sea, then it was necessary to cross the land of the Ad people to travel to the south or to Yemen or to cross to Iran, Pakistan, or India. Their land, the land of the people of Ad, was a road to all these places. The lost city of Iram, of the people of Ad, was large and very beautiful. They were great builders and built their houses into the rock. Hud's people were also very rich. You could not find any poor among them. Where can you say that today? So they were in the area of Jordan that we now call Petra, and that has all been unearthed. So what happened, you'll see, was the winds, really strong winds came, and it completely decimated their buildings and the people and their animals and everything. It decimated everything. And then over time, the archaeologists have dug it out so that we now can see a lot of Petra. And there's a really good program on Netflix, I think it's on Netflix, about Petra that shows a lot of it and explains the history. It really makes it come alive. It's really beautiful. So Hud's people were very rich. There was no poor among them. So that's one of the big things that stood out for me, is that this was a very rich civilization. They were very wealthy, partly because they were in the middle of the trade route and they were a stopping place and a trading place. So they were all merchants and they could really benefit from all the traffic that came through there, of all the caravans. Why then did Allah send his beloved prophet Hud to them? he sent him to remind them that there was a God who created them, who created the land, and who gave everything to them. He sent him to tell them that it was important to thank God for what he gave them and to pray to God, not to anything else. So this is what's interesting about a civilization that was simply very rich. I don't know if we know of any other of the prophets who God placed in civilizations that were simply rich. And as it says this in the Quran, we don't think to thank God for the things that we like. We only think to pray from our fingernails to Allah for the things that we don't like. And so when people are very rich and they're surrounded by rich, they take it for granted and they personally appropriate it. And I say we, those of us who have abundance, it's easy for us to get, the shaitan sucks us into thinking that it's through our hand and through our effort that we have that. And we don't stop to think that everything's from Allah, Jalal and Jamal. And so this is, for me, one of the major teachings of the fact that they were rich, but that they didn't really get that Allah is the source of all that they had. And so they prayed to idols. So Sidi says they refused any word from the prophet, like the people of Nuh, may peace and blessings be upon him, before them. The people of Ad were the fourth generation after Nuh. Ad was the son of Aus, who was the son of Aram, who was the son of Sam, the son of Nuh. And they prayed to idols like the people of Nuh before them. Okay, so they had three different idols. And the idols had to do with, well, I'll read it. There were three idols, Sauda, Samud, and Haba. In the Arabic language, Sauda is an echo. They thought that the voice that returned to them was the voice of God. For this reason, they prayed to this voice, like the voice that would echo back to them from the mountain or across a desert. Samud in the Arabic language is a quality of strength, like that of a mountain that cannot be moved. The people would make an idol of the mountain, call it Samud, and pray to it. Haba is the small shaft of light that comes through a window or a similar opening, usually in the early morning. The people did not believe that it came by itself, but thought that something sent it, and they prayed to it. So just like all the idolatry, the idolater civilizations, the idols, they attributed something from nature to the idol rather than going all the way behind and behind and behind to the original creator of everything with a capital C. The body, the originator. Allah says in the Quran to the Ad people, and to the tribe of Ad we sent their brother Hud. He said, O my people, worship Allah. You have no other deity save him. Will you not guard yourselves against evil? Surah Araf 765. So this is why they call him the prophet of unity, even though all the prophets had the same message, but his message was La ilaha illallah. There's nothing but Allah. Pray only to that. And Allah also says, and remember the brother of the tribe of Ad when he warned his people of the wind-carved dunes. And warners passed before and after him, saying, worship none except Allah. Truly, I fear for you the punishment of a terrible day. Surah Ahqaf 21. In this verse, Allah speaks to the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, reminding him that other people treated their prophets the same way the people of Mecca were treating him. So Allah wanted to comfort the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by saying, what you're going through is what all the prophets have gone through. And I'm sorry, my love, but this is just what I need you to be and to do in order for you to try to give the message to these people so they can open up to the reality of me, of Allah. Hud was not a stranger to his people, but one of their own brethren, just as the Holy Prophet began his message with a call to his own brethren, the Quraysh. He was So in the same way that the Prophet ﷺ was from among his own people, Hud was from among the people of Ad. Allah sent Hud to his people to tell them to pray to Allah and to know him through themselves. He who knows himself knows his Lord. They refused in the same way the people of Muhammad refused to follow him in the beginning. Allah said to the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you are not the first person or the first prophet from whom people refused to take the message. The Prophet Hud was from the Arab people like the Prophet Muhammad, and Allah sent him to his people, the Ad, and he said to his people, pray to Allah, leave everything, remember Allah, and thank him for what he gives to you. They refused to listen, but the Prophet still sends his message because he fears Allah will put them in the fire or give them a very difficult life if they do not listen. So again, he's trying to bring their attention to the one who gave them all that they have and not to idols. He's trying to divert their glance from the illusion to the truth of what's behind everything he gave them. And this is part of the trial. In the Quran, it says over and over again, your wealth and your children are your test, they're your trial. And this is part of the trial for these people, was because they were so content and satisfied with what they had, the shaitan gets in there and leads them to be self-satisfied. And so they're worshiping themselves as, their efforts, and, that's the origin of their wealth, and they're worshiping the idols of nature. And they just are stopping with the outside pictures, as Sidi says, and they're not going behind to the true source, the capital S. But it's a really big trial for these people. He didn't give them the trial of poverty, and Sidi doesn't talk about illness or all the other big trials that happened to people here. They didn't get the flood the way Noah's people did. They didn't get the plagues the way the Pharaoh's people did. Their wealth itself was their trial. It's really something to kind of take in, because people who have wealth take it for granted, don't see it as a trial, just see it. Most people see it because it was by their own effort, especially people in the Western world think they deserve it, and it's by their own effort and that they're special, and that's why they get it. And the people who don't have it usually want it, and they don't see it as a trial either, even though Allah says it over and over in the Quran. It's hard for people to understand how this can be a trial, but they make an idol even of their wealth and of their stuff. It's so hard for them to put Allah before anything because they're so content and satisfied. If you can kind of imagine that. Sidi goes on to say, if you know God now, then he gives you the chance to be in the garden now. But if you do not know God, then how can you find the real life and the real direction for yourself? The real life and the real direction, in other words, where to point your compass. The beloved Prophet Hud tried to bring his people to the real life. Allah had given them many material things. Hud did not tell them that Allah forbade them material things. He told them it was important not to pray to these things, but to use the material things for Allah and for those who needed them. Everyone said no and refused what the Prophet wanted. Allah sent them many gifts and they misused them. This is really important to understand. Hud's people did not believe there was only one God. They believed there were 3 or 4 or many. They said, how could one make all these things? So they thought there was one who created heaven, one who created the mountains, another who created the ocean, and many more. The chiefs who covered up the truth from among this people said, they said to Hud, surely we see that you are weak-minded, and truly we think that you are a liar. Hud said, oh, my people, there is no weak-mindedness in me, but I am a messenger from the Lord of all the worlds. I convey to you the messages of my Lord, and I am an honest advisor to you. Surah 7, 66 to 68. So again, this is just like what happened with the Prophet Muhammad and all the prophets. The people said, you're a madman, we're not going to believe you, you're a liar. Because what the prophets were telling them was so far removed from their reality as they perceived it. And it's all in perception, as they perceived it. Although the people of Hud were insolent and kept to their false idols, even after Hud spoke to them, he continued to send his message to them. He was their prophet, and Allah gave him understanding. He wanted to help his people and to discharge everything that the devil put into their minds. He said, I am a prophet from Rabbil Alameen. He is the Lord of all the worlds. He wants me and asked me to send his message to everyone without separation, and I am honest. These are some of the signs of the prophet. So what are the signs? Their persistence. Their desire to help their people to discharge the darkness, the devil. To send God's message. They wanted to send the message to all the people that were around them without any separation, and they were honest. Those are some of the signs. So when they first arrived in their land of Ad, it was the desert and there was no vegetation. And then God gave them irrigation, and they ended up having prosperity and strength. The earth became a garden in which you could find everything. The prophet reminded them that it was Allah who sent everything to them. Why not thank him? In their hearts, they knew that the line of Hud, the prophet, was straight, that his lineage was straight, and that he was honest. They could have trusted him completely. He said, remember that it was Allah who gave you this land after the people of Nuh. May the peace and blessings be upon him. Look at what Allah did the people of Nuh when they refused the order of Allah, and when they refused the message of Nuh. The message that came from Nuh was from Allah, but they refused it. Allah destroyed every one of them because they continued in sin without repentance. Allah is just. Nothing comes to anyone without a reason. If you walk straight, Allah does not send you a fire or problems. If you surrender completely to him, trust him, and follow his words, he's very careful about you. From the quality of Allah, if a person makes a mistake and he continues to make the same mistake, refusing the order of Allah and the word of Allah, Allah sends his last word. First, Allah gives him chance after chance to follow his order. But if he continues to do what the devil tells him, is always sinful, sees himself as better than others, refuses to give love and peace to people, which is what Allah wants, likes to take, not to give. If anyone like this continues to do these things, refusing to listen to the word of Allah, then Allah sends his last word to them and destroys them. He puts them in the fire or makes life difficult for them. They continued in sin without repentance. They didn't try to stop making their mistakes over and over again. This is what Sidi teaches us in Taba, that we need to try to stop making our mistakes over and over again. We need to really try to clean ourselves and purify tasawwuf and improve ourselves. And it's hard sometimes. Some of the mistakes that we make are habits that are really ingrained. They're even ingrained in our nervous system. And so it takes a lot of effort and vigilance for us to pull ourselves out of the rut of our bad habits and the things that Allah doesn't want us to do. And he says, Allah is just. Nothing comes to anyone without a reason. If you walk straight, he doesn't send you the fire problems. So this is a dangerous thing that I'm reading right now, because it's, we all have trials, and it's a real pitfall for us to think, uh-oh, I'm not walking straight, and that's why Allah sent me this. He's punishing me. And, many of us have been taught that image of God as the grand punisher sitting up in heaven somewhere, looking down on us and, you know, watching us for all our mistakes and coming in with a big stick all the time. I mean, that's what I was a Jew and I grew up with that image of God. I know a lot of Christians do too. And in fact, so do some Muslims even. For some reason, people got this wrong idea about what and who God really is. When Sidi says Allah is the just, nothing comes to anyone without a reason. I've said this in classes before, but I just want to remind you what the just is and what justice is based on. In Islam, justice is based on everything being in its proper place. And the word that's used to explain this is proper rank. But I always feel hesitant to use the word rank because in Western thinking, we think of rank and we think of higher rank and lower rank and better. People are better and people are worse and people are lower, and the higher one should have all the power. And that's not how rank is used here in Islam. So just for example, all the plant world has the rank of plant world. And all the animals have the rank of animal world. The plant world and the animal world have different ranks. And it's not better or worse. It's just how Allah spread out the creation, how he organized it. And so the human rank is a rank that's different from the plants and the animals. And of course, the humans are very beloved by Allah, and a lot is expected of us because of the rank Allah put us in. And then within the human world, just like within the animal and plant world, there are like sub-ranks. And really, there's a unique rank for each individual. Each of us has a unique rank that's based on our unique being as Allah created us. And again, it's not about better or worse. So justice is the dealing out of consequences for people's mistakes based on rank. And Sidi was a judge. And there aren't many judges around like him now. I don't know if there are in the Holy Land, but I don't know if there are in the Western world. But it used to be in the Muslim world that the judges were the Gnostics. They were the holy people, and they could see the unseen like a Gnostic can. And so they could tell what a person's God-given rank was. So if there were two people that were stealing and they were different people, had different ranks, a judge might assign one consequence to one and a different consequence to another because they had to be put in their proper place according to justice, which is according to their rank. And Sidi used to tell stories about this. And he'd tell stories about couples that would come to him fighting. And they'd be asking for a divorce. And some of them he'd grant the divorce, and some of them he wouldn't. Because he could see something deeper about them that was from Allah, given by Allah, where they had a certain rank where they were either supposed to split apart or they were supposed to stay together. You see? And I won't get into the whole story about colonialism and how it broke down the whole system of the Gnostics being the judges. But if you're interested in it, there's a really good book called The Great Theft. We teach about this in peacemaking, and it explains the devolution, the falling down of the original pure form of justice, because the colonial powers installed non-holy people who were their political tools, their weapons, in the place of the justices, the lawyers and the judges, instead of the Gnostics who had that role. And so these political tools who were put in that place didn't have gnosis. They didn't, it lost the whole basis in rank. The whole justice system lost its basis in rank. And if we got back to that basis, it would be so holy and so beautiful, and the justice system would be completely shifted so that each person that went outside of the law would be dealt with according to who they are and what Allah's purpose for them is, and what it's going to take for them to learn and to come back and walk straight again. Do you see? It's like really important to understand that, especially in light of the horrible justice system that we have right now in this country. Okay, so the that was kind of a big long aside, but anyway, down at the bottom of page 81, he's talking about the people who make mistakes and don't return. They don't ask Allah for help, and they don't apologize, and they don't do tawbah. And he gives the qualities of these people, and these qualities are the qualities that are driven by shaitan. So it's important for us to understand this. First, Allah gives him chance after chance to follow the order, but he continues to do what the devil tells him. He continues to go astray, okay? He's always sinful. He sees himself as better than others. He's arrogant, just like Iblis was. He refuses to give love and peace to people, which is what Allah wants. He likes to take and does not like to give. If anyone like this continues to do these things, refusing to listen to the word of Allah, then Allah sends his last word and destroys them. So it's high stakes. It's like you got to be really caught by the shaitan in a big way to be one of the people or a group of people that Allah is going to completely flatten the way the big winds flattened the people of Ad. Allah gave them a chance after Noah to have a land and a beautiful city. Sidi says they were a tall people and a strong people. Allah gave them strong bodies and strong blood. So not only did they have wealth, but they had these other wonderful qualities too. At that time, a person grew to 3 meters, Sidi says, and lived about 2,000 years. Jeez. It was for that reason that they did not think about death, and they felt secure in building strong buildings to last forever. These buildings were different from any in the world. The Rose City in Petra in Jordan was built by these people, and if you could go there to visit, you would not believe that human beings could have built it. These were only some of the buildings that they made. So let's look at this thing about they didn't think about death. It's something I think about a lot. Because Allah gave them such a strong life, you know, the shaitan drives them to think we don't have any problems. We've got everything we want. We're going to live a long time. We're really strong and really big, and we have nothing to fear. And you know, they didn't have to think about death because it wasn't around the corner. You know, they could think of it as a very far off thing. And in our world, when we're young, we usually think of death as a very far off thing. And as we get older, hopefully we get to realize that death is coming closer and closer. Now, the truth is, death is always really close, but we're not awake to that. We're asleep to it because we want to deny it because we don't like it, of course. And so they had, just like their wealth, Allah gave them all these luxuries, really big, strong bodies, really long life, all this material wealth, no poor people. You know, they're not seeing suffering very much, but it's like it's all a trial because, you know, Allah wants us to have our eye on the akhirah, on the afterlife. He wants us to be living with death on our shoulder and realizing that at any moment, we could be taken, and whatever we've done or haven't done up till that moment matters. And one time, I don't know, a while back, I was reading something from Sidi, and I used to always wonder, you know, Judgment Day, you know, we think of it as far off, and Sidi was always telling us it's really close, and the Prophet ﷺ said it was close. And you know, somebody asked the Prophet, when is Judgment Day? And the Prophet said only Allah knows. And I just thought it was really interesting that there were very few things that we knew of. I mean, Allah probably kept a lot for Allah's knowing that we don't know. But that was one of the big things that Allah would never reveal to anybody, no matter who they were, even a prophet, even the final prophet. And so nobody ever got a clue about that. And I always thought that was really interesting. Why is that something Allah reserves for Allah? And then what came to me is that if we knew that it was in 100 years after our lifetime, we wouldn't be all that worried about whether we're righteous and whether the shaitan's catching us and whether we're making our mistakes over and over again, because we would just think, well, the consequences are so far off and I'll be dead by then and I won't even care. Now, on the other side of things, if we knew Judgment Day was next week, we would be hustling to fit in as much good as we could. You know what I mean? And this illusion that it's far off and I've got all the time I need and I can be mediocre or whatever or not try. It's like, that's Allah's trial for us. That's why Allah wants us to be conscious of death and conscious of Judgment Day, because Allah wants us to live every day like it really matters for our akhirah, for our afterlife. So I think that's why Allah doesn't reveal it, so that we will take the trouble to live every day as exalted and to be our best self as possible. We have good days and bad days, of course, but I think that's why Allah doesn't reveal it. So here we have people who live to be 2,000 years. So that's their trial, because they didn't think about Judgment Day. They had 1,500 more years to go, when they were 500 years old. I mean, think about that. Would you, if you were going to live to 1,000 years and you're 500 years old and you're a grown up, would you worry about something that's 1,500 years off? So it was a trial for them. It's really interesting. Okay, so let's see. So Sidi says they were materialistic. On page 82, towards the bottom, they believed in the security of their buildings and their resources. They continued to refuse Hud's message, to break many hearts. The young people were not good. There was killing, stealing, and many sins. So I guess they did have at least some generations that, were not, killing, stealing, and many sins. So Sidi says, Allah doesn't accept this kind of behavior. It's not from his qualities and not from his message. For that reason, he sent his voice to them. Why do you continue this behavior? Why don't you listen to the word of Hud? But they did not listen. They continued to build, and everything they did and every good thing that came to them, they attributed to themselves. They thought it was all because of their own merit. Meritocracy is one of the problems in our society right now. If Allah took away all he had given them, they would see they had no life, only death. So skipping down a little bit on page 83, again, they called Hud a madman. They said, you have not brought us clear proofs. We're not going to forsake our gods just because you say. We're not going to believe you. We think that you're possessed with evil, which, you're a madman. That's what they said to Muhammad. That's what they said to all the prophets, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's hard. It's hard to stand in front of people. I mean, some of you have probably had this experience. You're standing in front of maybe your family or group of people, and you're saying something that's, is the truth of Allah. Maybe it's something from the Quran or something that you've gotten through inspiration. It's the truth, and the people around you think you're nuts. Some of you have probably had that experience. It's hard. And when these are his own people and Allah's charging him with this message, just like all the prophets, and the people are like with the Prophet Muhammad, they threw rocks at him, they threw garbage on him, they did everything. They starved them, they boycotted them for a couple of years. So, they had to stand up to that. And obviously, Allah gave them the strength of their convictions. But, we even know that Jesus at one point broke down and said, "Oh God, if you could just take this cup from me." He was a prophet and he just broke down. He was like, "It's so hard. Please take it." And you can imagine that all of them must have had some moments like that where they were like, "I don't know if I can do it." And it's interesting because in our own lives, I think you've all probably had some really big trials, and you've probably all had moments where you were like, "I don't know if I'm going to get through this. This is really hard." And where you think, gosh, if I had been somebody who lived if I were the Muslims in India right now, I don't know if you know what's happening to them, but it's really, really bad. Or in some of the other places that are more well known that's happening. If I lived there, how would I be? Like a lot of the Jews during the Inquisition and the build up to Hitler in Europe, they were converting to Christianity so that they could save their lives and save their children. And then in their basements, they were lighting their Hanukkah their Shabbat candles and secretly, celebrating the Sabbath. But I spent a lot of my life wondering, how would I be if Allah put me in circumstances like I read about in history that is so difficult. And knowing myself as I know myself, I'd probably never have the strength, to get through it with nobility and dignity. And then we have these experiences, and somehow Allah gives us something. He gives us something so that we get through it, we survive it, and maybe even we survived it pretty nobly. And maybe we survived it without our hearts becoming like prunes, shriveling up and drying. And I had cancer, most of you know this. And I must say, before I ever knew I had cancer, I was one of those people who read books about people who had cancer and thought about it. And I was like, God, I wonder what I'd be like. I'd probably just crumble, and lose my faith and all this stuff. And my experience during that period was not at all what I thought it was going to be. And I'm still shocked, honestly, at what Allah gave me so that I went through it the way I did. And my heart didn't shrivel up. I was in a state of love and pretty much gratitude almost the whole time. It was completely from Allah, because I'm not the kind of person who would have gone through that experience that way. So I know that it had to be from Allah. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you all have something in your life, whether it's with you or your kids or your health or an ex or something that's just really, really hard, and then you look back and you go, God, how did I ever get through that way? Well, Allah gave you stuff. Allah gave you qualities that totally by the grace of Allah, you couldn't have dug them up yourself, And then afterwards, a lot of those qualities stayed in you, because that was a lot of what the experience was about, was to bring you the purification and bring you into those qualities. So that's what it was like for these guys, these prophets. They were just like, they could have crumbled, and Allah gave them what they needed to get through these really hard challenges. So Hud said to his people, I call Allah to witness, and you witness as well, that I am free from whatever partners you set up to worship other than him. So plot against me, all of you, then give me no respite. And that's in Surah Hud, Surah 11, 54 to 55. So, Allah gave him that strength, that chutzpah. It's from Allah. Okay, so let's keep going. Hud says at the top of 84, Sidi says, no one walks on this earth without the order of Allah. Hud was not afraid of them because he knew the deep meaning. Everything's from the hand of Allah. Hud surrendered completely to Allah and trusted Allah completely. For that reason, he did not care about anything that came from anyone, but believed that Allah moved him and moves everyone. So he knew that the people who were attacking him, of his tribe, his family, that Allah moved them too. That's an important point to get, that Allah is moving everybody, including the people that we think of as our enemies or our opponents or our oppressors. Sidi says, you may not see it yet, but everything comes in the perfect time and in the perfect place for everyone. And then he says further down on page 84, the black mind cannot believe this, but if you look deep, my beloved, then you see that Allah gathers and moves everything. He knows everything even before it comes into this world. He knows how long everyone will live, what they will eat, who they meet, the water they drink, the air they breathe, and the clothes they wear. Before you came here, everything was ready for you. Nobody can make this world ready for you, only Allah. Not only for you, but for everyone and for everything. He created everything and he cares about everything. This is the meaning of the station of the beloved Hud. May peace and blessings be upon him. It's such an amazing message to think about living that way with that awareness that Allah moves everything, even the stuff I don't like and the people I don't like. He says, if you look deep, then you see that Allah gathers and moves everything. In other words, looking deep includes looking beyond the shaitan, how the shaitan's trying to get us and trick us into losing our faith, losing our grip, losing our handhold on the rope of Allah. Hud's people told him they couldn't leave their idols because it was what all their ancestors have done, just like the Quraysh with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's so interesting. They thought Hud was just talking about superstitions. I think about this a lot because there's so many times where I see myself or somebody else saying, yeah, but we've always done it this way. Like my kids, like I'm trying to get into the 21st century. And it's not easy, believe me. Some things I can do and some things I just can't get my head and heart around. But, and inside, I don't want to say it to them because I don't want to be the Quraysh, but they're like, come on, mama. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't say it, but I think I've always done it this way. It's worked for me, And this is a human thing. This isn't just the Quraysh and the people who are evil that Allah destroys. This is something that we run into, like think about roles between men and women. And if they're trying to meet in the middle, and on each side they're saying, I can't meet you in the middle because I've always done it this way. My mother did my laundry for me. My mother cooked all my meals for me. It's always been this way. Why are you asking me to help cook meals and do laundry? It's always been this way. It's the same as the Quraysh. It's just a little example, but there's little and big examples of that all over the place. And they're inside of us. My kids will often laugh at me and say, Mama, why are you doing that? You don't have to do that. And I'm just like, oh, I don't want to have to learn a new way. I don't want to have to learn everything new that everybody's doing now. It's too much trouble. I don't have the energy. It's easier for me to keep doing it the way I've always done it. I see it all the time in cooking. There's new things being developed all the time, new technology, new kinds of cooking utensils like the slow cooker. I don't have one yet. I'm kind of scared. It sounds stupid, but it's like a threshold to me. I like my pressure cooker. My daughter's like, Mama, I want to get you a slow cooker. This is so cool. I'm like, She's like, you'll be able to throw away your pressure cooker. I'm like, I don't want to throw away my pressure cooker. I've had it for 50 years, you know? And she's like, yeah, but you can do this and this and this. And I'm like, ah, don't tell me about this new thing. There's lots of new things I like, of course. It's not every new thing, but I'm just giving you a silly example just to see if you can relate to it in your own life. You know, something that a younger generation is trying to put before you that you're like, no, we've always done it this other way. That's the best way to do it. You know, we're older, we know. We have history, you know. That's what the prophets ran into. So it makes me wonder, would I be a courageous, like if somebody came into my midst in the way I think now, a prophet came in and started talking in a whole different way from what I feel I've worked hard to get used to and worked hard to believe and done all these changes inside and outside to get to the point where I am now at, you know, this age of 70 something. And somebody came in and said, no, that's not the truth of God. It's like this. And would I be one of those people who's saying, you're a madman? And what are you talking about? We've always done it this way. I'm scared that I might be. Anyway, so finally, Allah did send 3 years of famine. I forgot about this. The prophet said their arrogance and sin was itself a punishment. The famine didn't turn them around. That was their last chance. So finally, Allah sent them this huge wind. It was like a hurricane. And the Surah Dariyat is about that. That's what that Dariyat is, the winds. And it's all different kinds of winds. And in the Surah, Allah describes them. And it's really interesting because what does the wind stand for? Because in the Surah, Allah talks about how the wind can scatter seeds so that there's more growth in vegetation. It can even scatter seeds across the desert so that the seeds can take root somewhere. That's like an example of a good wind. Or the wind can scatter the clouds so that it rains in progressively new places. So those are the good winds. But then Allah sends these really, really strong winds that blow over trees, you know, or here with the fires in California, the wind spreads the fire from treetop to treetop until you have thousands and thousands of acres that are burned, like right across the street from me even. So, you know, in this case, Sidi says, when Allah sent his last order for them, he sent a very hot, strong wind. It left no trees standing, pulled them out by the roots, destroyed most of their houses. It's kind of like a big tornado, but it covered their whole civilization. If anyone was walking on the road, the wind carried him until he fell. He was like a person who had fallen down 3 flights of stairs. No one could escape this wind. For 7 nights, the wind was very cold, and for 8 days, a hot wind did not leave anyone. Some people tried to go inside to their homes to escape, but the wind even went inside and took them out and threw them down. Some people tried to hide inside their well, but the wind went down the well and flushed them up, brought them up. The wind spared no one. After these days and nights, there was nothing left in the city but the birds and the animals. And until now, this city is like this. So Sidi says in the tafsir of this surah, I didn't bring the book with me, but he says, Allah, there's many meanings for the wind. And ultimately, the wind comes back to the breath of Allah that Allah breathed into Adam and breathes into every single one of us every single time we take an in-breath. It's not that it happened once for Adam. It happened every time he breathed an in-breath. Allah blew it into us to enliven our corpse, our body, you know, prenatally. And then Allah blows it into us every time we breathe in. That's where our breath comes from, is from the spirit, the breath of Allah. So this breath is spirit, and the wind is Allah's spirit. blowing over the earth, blowing through the people, destroying them because they were so astray. But for the people who are not astray, he blows the wind and gives them seeds and water from the clouds for rain, for their soil, and the Holy Spirit that he blows into us to help us get to the Qudus of Allah. So Sidi says the wind it's the spirit of Allah. And everything in nature is something, it's all a symbol. Yeah, so Sidi says in the bottom of page 87, for that reason, it's important for everyone to put himself between the hands of God, to thank him, and to see him in everything. You cannot do anything if Allah does not help you. He wants everyone to follow his word for himself. When a person does good, he does good for himself. Allah does not need anything from us, beloved Sidi said. You take everything for yourself. This is the story of Hud. So let's do an exercise with this. Well, first, are there any questions or comments? And then we'll do the exercise. None? Okay, really? Okay. All right, so the exercise, this is your own chance for your own exercise. Okay, so I want you to close your eyes and go inside. Sidi says it's important for everyone to put himself between the hands of God. So I want you to close your eyes and think of something that's pretty current in your life that's a challenge for you. And just take a little minute to think of something. Now, I want you to put that right in front of your heart's witnessing, that experience that you're in. Put it in front of the eyes of your heart. So you're really looking at it and it's up close and personal. And let your body experience what your body experiences in this. So let your heart, your body, maybe it's even a body, maybe it's a physical illness, so your body's already experiencing symptoms from it. So just pay attention to those things, the way the body is manifesting, how it's like, what it's like for you to be in this experience. Now, at this point, you're looking at this experience and you only see what you see, and you only feel what you feel. And you might not even feel like you're between the hands of Allah. You might even feel like, where is Allah? You know, this is so hard for me. Where's Allah? I don't feel Allah here. So how can I feel like I'm between the two hands of Allah? Okay? So stay inside with this and just think about and be with Allah moves everything. Everything that's come to you, every person, everything, and every experience has been moved by Allah. And Allah gathers everything. So Allah has gathered those things around you for a reason. And so far, you don't know the reason, and that's okay. Allah is the knower. We're not. Okay? So I want you to open your heart, and we're going to do Astaghfirullah Azim. Astaghfirullah Azim, the translation I like is, forgive me, my Lord, for making separation from you in this experience. I don't make separation in everything, but sometimes stuff is so hard that I make separation from you, Allah, or from your creation, meaning from some people in your creation or things in your creation. And making separation from that is equivalent to making separation from Allah. Okay? So let's do some Astaghfirullah Azim about the separation. And let's let it come to our hearts no matter how your heart is now. It doesn't matter. Your heart can be in any state. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Astaghfirullah Azim. 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 Do it with me because the holy sounds will help you walk through this. Astaghfirullah Azim. 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 Breathe in and breathe in the Rahman of Allah. Tawbah doesn't work unless you're full of compassion for yourself. Allow Allah to send the light of His Rahman to you. That's it. And drink it with your heart. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman. 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 Breathe in the light of the mercy that Allah is sending you. Let your heart drink it. It doesn't matter what you're thinking right now. Your thoughts don't matter. All that matters is your heart receiving from Allah. That's it. That's good. Keep going just a little bit more. Okay, now let's go back to the Tauba. Stay inside. And we want to do it from the place, excuse me, the place of this heart that's been tenderized by the Rahman, that's been softened. Astaghfirullah, 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 Astaghfirullah. Breathe it in. And just let the light come in and let Allah do whatever Allah is doing with you. You are between the two hands of Allah. See if you can allow yourself to be moved, even in a small way. Okay. So if you want to jot down a few notes, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can. And then we're going to do a little bit of writing from this chapter. So if you want to take a couple minutes and jot down notes, or if you want to continue the process, either way, it's fine. Okay, I'm going to read you the last part of the last paragraph of this chapter, and I invite you to write. And as you're writing, let the spirit of the transmission come in through your hand, travel to your heart. And then as the blood is running through your heart, let the blood carry that spirit of that transmission all through you, all through your being. So Sidi's talking about what happened to the people of Ad. And he says, it was really the deep help and the deep mercy for them. So it was really the deep help and the deep mercy for them, period. Next sentence. It was difficult for them only because of what they could not see. It was difficult for them. It was difficult for them only because of what they could not see, comma. Only because of what they could not see. And this is the wisdom of this story. And this is the wisdom of this story. I'm going to read that again. It was difficult for them only because of what they could not see. And this is the wisdom of this story. We can't see or know what we can't see or know. And so Allah puts us in these experiences and we don't know what Allah knows about it for us. We just don't know. But are we willing to suspend our judgment about our situation and go empty? And then Allah can drop Allah's knowing into us. That's how we get to know it from Allah. As long as we're full of our own complaints and our own way of seeing it and our own explanation, there's no room for Allah to fill our cup with Allah's knowing. So it was difficult for them only because of what they could not see. And this is the wisdom of this story. You know how in the Quran it says people hate what is good for them and they love what is bad for them? Because we don't know what Allah's making. We don't know what's down the road. It's like people loving food that's really bad for them and they let themselves keep eating it and they don't know what's down the road is heart disease. And they hate to eat their vegetables because they don't know what's down the road for them is better health if they have those nutrients. Sidi says, this is for writing, it is important for people to contain the holy fear of Allah. It is important for people to contain the holy fear of Allah. And to do what is right in this life. And to do what is right in this life, period. If they do not, period. If they do not, comma. If they do not, comma. Then Allah sends His holy fire to clean them, comma. Then Allah sends His holy fire to clean them, comma. And this is the deep help for them, period. And this is the deep help for them, period. This story is for everyone who wants to walk. This story is for everyone who wants to walk and to know that there is a chance for him. And to know that there is a chance for him. Period. There is always a chance for him. Period. There is always a chance for him. Period. Allah does not end the chance for any one of his beloveds. Period. Allah does not end the chance for any one of his beloveds. Period. The door is always open for everyone. Period. The door is always open for everyone. Period. Let's do some dhikr. And this dhikr is asking Allah to place this message in our heart and in our being, in our heart, in our body, in our mind, and our spirit. La ilaha illallah. Let's all do it together. La ilaha illallah. 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 Breathe it in. Let it spread all over you. In the Wadhifa, it says, وَاقْذِفْ بِي عَلَى الْبَاطِلِ بِأَنْوَاهِهِ فِي جَامِ بِقَاعِي. فأدمغوه بالحق يا الله واجهي الحق. Throw me like a stone on falsehood in all of its manifestations and in all places, so that I might refute the lie by the truth in the presence of the most true. واقذف بالله باطلي بأنواعه في جامع بقاعي فأدمغوه بالحق يا الله واجهي الحق. Throw me like a stone on falsehood in all of its manifestations and in all places, so that I might refute the lie by the truth in the presence of the most true, including the falsehoods that we make up about what's happening in our lives. May Allah return us to the Haq Mubin, the clear truth. May Allah help us to go behind and behind everything that we experience and see until we come to the real clear truth, the Haq Mubin of Allah. Okay, so I didn't leave much time for question answer discussion, so I'm going to open that up now, and I will stay on for a while for people who have something that they want to say or ask, and I'm sorry that I didn't leave enough time for it.
It was beautiful. Thank you.
Does anybody want to say or ask anything? Yes, Stephanie, are you raising your hand? Hi, Assalamu alaikum.
Hi, thank you so much. I actually wasn't, I was like trying to move it around, but in my mind I did. So that was kind of good luck for me, I guess, because I was going to regret not saying
The door is
anything.
open, as you just wrote.
Yeah, and actually that's the part that stood out to me, that the door is always open.
Oh.
And I felt so silly because I felt I always see this image of a door and I always get a little scared to go through it. But so then I saw that and I'm like, oh, definitely should have gone through that door sooner. But no,
Well,
I
you know what I do if I'm scared is I ask Allah to hold my hand. And I also ask Allah not to make it be too fast.
yeah.
Like I could tiptoe through, or I could step partway through today and a little bit more next week. So
Yeah.
Allah's willing to slow down the timing of things so that I don't have to be too scared.
That's beautiful. I'm gonna do that. I love that.
Yeah.
I was struggling with work. I've been out of work for a while on disability. And I was going back, but I really was resisting it. And I had to go back on Friday. And I just had a really hard time because it's not that I can't do the job itself. It's more so like I don't really want to be there, but I really don't know. And I just don't know what else I would be doing because I've always worked in that. Yeah, I work in the government and I've helped people. I work for disability actually. And I've been assisting during the pandemic to unemployment and helping them out. And
no wonder you don't want to go back. It's hard to see all that pain in front of you with all those people. It's hard.
Yeah, I think that's what really was tough for me, to just hear everyone suffering every day. And we couldn't
That's
really
a lot
do too
to
much.
contain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to help everyone, but I just felt like the bureaucracy aspect was not very helpful.
Yeah, it is. It's really true. That must be so frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, when I feel that Allah is giving me something that's too big or too hard, it's almost like literally my heart's not big enough. And if Allah would just expand my heart more, I could probably hold it or do it or move forward. So you can ask Allah to expand your heart, because he's the mover.
Yeah.
You know, he can make your heart bigger so that it doesn't feel like it's crowded with so much suffering.
That's how I felt. Oh, yeah. No, and I think it was only Allah that helped me yesterday, because I literally was just panicking, like, I have to get through this whole day and just really, but it
Yeah,
was
and you don't want to
only,
be the bad person. You don't want to be the one
yeah,
that they're mad at because the bureaucracy won't give them what they need. I get that.
yeah. And it's, I know that I'm there for something. I have to kind of be that voice behind the scenes where you're kind of just pushing out, and it has helped. It has helped a lot. And that's why I know I have to stay there, kind of. But at the same time, I'm just like suffer with it a little bit, and that's why this is safety.
Somebody said to me yesterday, pain is what happens when our dreams hit our reality.
Wow.
You know, like the dream that everybody would get the help they need and that they'd feel
Yeah.
much better and happy and maybe even recover. And then the
Yeah.
reality of the bureaucracy.
Yes.
And that crashing in from the dream to the reality is so painful.
Yes, it is. And that's why I'm just so grateful for place like I like doing this group, and every week has been so helpful. It's the only thing carrying me through, in the Sufi circle that I do also. And it's like, if I didn't have this in Allah, I don't know how I would have survived this whole time, to be honest.
Yeah, Allah's put you in a really challenging job. And Allah's the mover. So Allah must know something about you that maybe you don't know yet. That's why Allah's got you in such an important place.
Yeah,
And
I just have to
the
trust.
fact that you can't do as much as you want to do, but you see some good effects of what you're doing, that's kind of a human condition thing, that we wish we could do more, and so we don't feel good about the little bit we are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Truly. Thank you so
for the
much.
work you're doing.
Thank you.
Who else? Anybody else want to say something or ask something? Really? Okay. Great. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, Halima.
Alhamdulillah. I just want to tell you how much I really appreciate the exercise. I have been in a place where a lot of fear is coming up around me. Families don't necessarily agree with how to proceed with the current situation. So I am also noticing that I'm in that place right now. And what I was doing was I was holding their hearts, and I was holding mine, and I was holding space. But the piece that really, really helped to continue the expansion is not only having Allah's hands, but that He is the mover, the reminder that He is the mover. So now I'm imagining that I don't have to necessarily hold my position as strongly, not that I give up what I believe and what I feel at this moment, but just not that I have to hold on to it as an end all be all. It's going to be this way or another way.
Yeah.
Because it's a strong walking when I'm dealing with, and like I said, it's a lot of fear around me, as well as it's triggering my own fear about the future.
Thanks, Halima.
Thank you so much.
I was caught a few days ago because I'm face to face with several families that are caught in really, really ugly divorce and custody battles, and my heart goes out to the children. And I was like, Allah, why are you putting 3 families like this in front of me right now? Like, this is really hard. And I was really struggling with it. And I was feeling really helpless. Like, I don't know, are you asking me to do anything? I really can't. And I was really upset. And I thought I wouldn't be able to go to sleep, but I did. I just did a lot of tauba and strong dhikr before I went to bed. And the next morning I got up and it was a lot better, but it wasn't all better. And so I called up a friend of mine who's on the path and just said, this is just so hard, such ugly court battles, and the justice system sucks, and it's just not fair to these children, blah, blah. And she said, I know the shaitan is so strong right now, right before Ramadan. She said, it's always strong before Ramadan, but I've never seen it this strong. And I wasn't even talking about the shaitan, but all she had to do was say that. I was like, oh my God, I'm completely caught by the shaitan right now. And it just like it loosened up. It just like, it was amazing. It's like within just a few minutes, it all dissolved. And it's not like I didn't care anymore, but I wasn't caught and I wasn't embroiled. And it was just so good to be reminded we're coming into Ramadan, and I wasn't thinking about that aspect of it, that the shaitan kind of is doing its last gasp before it's in chains, and to just notice that and be aware and do a lot of a'udu billah, a'udu billah, a'udu billah, and it could be lanati la tama, because that's happening right now. So it was just a very simple thing, and I didn't even talk to her for a long time, but it just really helped me with what's going on around me and why is this so awful, So maybe that's a factor, Halima. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm supposed to have the conversation next week, so we'll see what happens in the meantime. But thank you for that very, very important, helpful piece, and your presentation of how you put this together. Alhamdulillah, so much gratitude.
Somebody's got a hand raised who's an iPhone person.
iPhone, yeah.
Who are you?
This is Samaya.
Samaya.
How are you?
I got it. I got your voice. I'm good, sweetie.
Good. So this was just amazing. And one of the big takeaways for me is what our pictures do to us. If you consider that, again, everything is from Allah. And if you think you're in the garden, like that in and of itself can present a challenge, like the people of Hud.
Yeah, good point.
It was just, for me, it really brought it home how to just be an acceptance of whatever Allah makes and to not put any pictures on it. So I'm very appreciative for this teaching. Thank you.
Oh,
and just to feel your presence is amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, Samaya. It's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm moving to North Carolina soon because of the fires in California. So I'll be on the East Coast. So maybe I'll start to be able to see a lot of you more.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, it would.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. It's good to hear your voice, Samaya.
You too.
Anybody else? Oh,
Layla.
Layla Elizabeth. Where are you? Hello, Layla Elizabeth?
Salam alaikum, Nura.
Salam.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Salam alaikum, Nura.
Alaikum salam.
Well, my situation is a little similar to the beloved and returning to her job. I've been out with COVID for a week, and I don't feel ready to return to work, but my boss has given me an ultimatum that I have to be back to work, but on Wednesday. So it's a pretty demanding job. And so just kind of doing being with you in this class and just seeing what Allah makes with everything. And there's a big part of me that just wishes I could have Ramadan off and just heal and be with Allah. So I will turn it over to Allah and see see what happens. I don't feel ready to return on Wednesday, but inshallah, we'll see.
Mm.
So,
I don't know if you know this, Layla, but my husband Wadud is a doctor.
mhm.
He's been staying on top of all the research and okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. It's late for some of you, so let's go and let you go to bed or whatever your next step is. Thank you so much to the Unity Prayer people for giving me the opportunity to be with everybody and to share the beautiful teachings in this book. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our sister Nura. This was an amazing talk, and this, I mean, I really filled my cup, and I think, you know, we all felt this way. It just was so amazing and so inspiring, you know, especially like we live in this time, you know, with we have all the technology, we have everything, and we sometimes feel like the people of Hud, that we don't need Allah. We get the technology, we got everything, so we're just fine, you know. So this is really great reminder, and I really
We need
appreciate
Allah
that.
for every
Thank you so
breath.
much.
If for Allah were in here, we couldn't even breathe in. I'm sorry, go ahead. What was the last thing?
See you guys after Ramadan, inshallah. Have a blessed Ramadan, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much for everything, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, and have a great evening.